Welcome to the Christianity in Business podcast with host Darren Shear, an initiative of the Archie W. Dunham College of Business at Houston Baptist University. This is the show that helps Christian business leaders to integrate biblical values into business. You can get more information about the HBU Center for Christianity in Business and sign up to receive free access to all 5 issues of the Christian Business Review Journal by visiting our website at christianityinbusiness.com.
Today we'll be discussing Bible-based branding for businesses, and we're joined by Mark MacDonald. Mark is a Bible teacher, speaker, author of Be Known for Something, and communication strategist for BeKnownForSomething.com. Mark, you're doing a great job with branding here. I think we know what you're all about. He's helping organizations, particularly churches, but businesses as well, to be known for something in particular. It's deliberate differentiation. He empowers churches to become known for something relevant, which is a communication thread throughout their ministries, websites, and social media. So whether you're marketing a church or a business, the principles of marketing don't change. And Mark, I can tell you as a personal friend of mine, is a master of those principles. Welcome to the Christianity and Business podcast, Mark.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to talking about it. As you say, I think I probably say be known for something more than any other person in the entire world. Well,
it's certainly a message that we need to hear, and super excited about having you on today. Why don't you, if somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, oh, branding, marketing, they're thinking sleazy salespeople and all these kinds of things come to mind. Why don't you speak to that person, that question? Is branding biblical? And what would you say to someone who says branding and marketing is just selfish self-promotion?
Wow, it's a great question because, and I don't even think it's in my bio, but I've been doing this for 32 years. The way that I started working in the communication industry is working for a very large ad agency in Eastern Canada. I got to work with a lot of different businesses, big businesses, and did a lot of political things, as well as I handled a lot of the East Coast Canada tourism industry, which was just fascinating, and it got me outside as well, which is where I like to be. But I guess that during that time, I just realized how many principles we use in the ad agency business that the church just hasn't caught on to. And every time that I would hear a great evangelist speak about, how we need to go and tell, and I've heard so many people say that it's not just go and tell, but it's as you're going, tell. Mm-hmm. And those principles is just really good communication principles. So how do we, as we are going about our daily lives, how do we tell? How do we actually show that we are Christ followers? And it was through that time that I started talking to pastors, and almost every pastor that I talked to gave me that look of, I think you're talking about business. I don't think you're talking about us. We don't need marketing. And I think a lot of people do push back, just as you're talking about it, because it feels like, well, does marketing and the church have any right to dwell alongside of each other? And really, it was through all of that discussion that the idea of be known for something came up, because, I would talk to a pastor and I'd say, well, do you have a brand? And they would say, yes. Do you want to see our logo? And they'd pull out their business card. And it's like, okay, well, that's a great logo, but do you have a brand?
Right.
And they would say, well, yeah, I think so. I mean, we put this logo on everything. And the concept of good communications is figuring out, so what is the big takeaway once you've left or before you arrive? What are people saying about you behind your back? And that's we think of that as reputation or perception, but ultimately that's your brand, that big holistic idea of what do you have to offer me. And the more I talked about it, the more I would pray before going in and talking to a pastor, and it was actually before a church conference that I was doing in New Orleans that I just prayed, and I pray as I always do. Lord, keep me from saying anything stupid, and let me say only words that you want me to have to say. And instantly I thought, oh my goodness, they just want to be known for something. Our churches have to become known for something. And I walked into the room and I told the person who was going to be presenting the slides for me, I said, just put the first slide up, and I'm not going to talk on what I was going to talk on. I want to just talk about, so how can we become known for something? And it was from that I came back and talked to my attorneys, and we got the trademark for be known for something, mainly because the whole concept, it's not about being self-serving. It's how do we become known for something so that the people around us will accept our communication. And if we can do that as believers, it's not about us anymore. It's about Jesus. And that's, if we're Christ followers, how do we have a reputation or a perception that we're helping our audience so that they'll actually accept the thread of Jesus Christ?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a progression here. From on a personal level, if somebody doesn't know what you as an individual are all about, they're not going to be able to understand the organization that you represent. And then if somebody doesn't understand what your organization is all about, they're not going to understand the bigger why, the bigger cause. In our cases as Christians, they're not going to understand what Jesus is all about until they understand, they can identify with some specific aspect of the church. I mean, I was thinking about Jesus and the way that Jesus branded himself. I mean, he would use familiar concepts to help people understand who he is. He would say, I'm the bread of life. Well, anyone who's a human knows what bread is and knows how much they need it. Or the living water, or that he's the good shepherd, and all of these things Jesus is doing to help people understand what he's all about, and what you're saying, and what I absolutely believe as well, is that we have to do this on individual as well as on a corporate level, as churches, as businesses.
Well, and it's interesting, even going that step further, here Jesus is all through his life, and he is saying, I am like this, I am like that, which allows for people to fully understand what he's all about. But everyone always says, well, last words are probably the most important words. As Jesus is nearing his earthly ministry, the end of his earthly ministry, he's gathered together with all of his disciples. Judas is kind of revealed that he's going to be the guy that betrays Jesus. So he leaves the room, and here are his disciples and Jesus together, and the conversation comes up of, okay, well, here we are. We're Christ followers, but what does that actually mean? And Jesus changes the conversation, and he starts talking about the importance of love, and that it's a new commandment to love one another. And then in the whole concept in John 13, where he says, I mean, he wanted to say be known for something, but I'm going to translate it that way. But it's like, by this, and the love that he was talking about, by this, all people will know that you're my disciples if you have love one towards another. So, you want to be known for something? Well, make sure, if you're a Christ follower, to be known for love. And my book has the foreword by Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote the 5 Love Languages. And the cool thing about the synergy that happens between Dr. Chapman and myself is that his book is all about, okay, it's all about love, but everyone doesn't receive love the way that you think you're giving love. And in order for the other person to fully feel loved, you have to slightly change the way that you love on that person. And in the same sense, here we are, we're to be known for love. So yeah, be known for something. Yes, be known for love. However, how do people in your community actually receive that love? And it's not in that we have to, say to them, no, we're loving you. Can't you see we're loving you? No, we have to make sure that if we're communicating love, that we have to communicate it in such a way so that they actually do feel it. And that's where perception and it becomes reality to those people. We need to be known for something that says to them that we're different and that we actually do love.
Wow. It's like the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But then the platinum rule is do unto others as they would have you do unto them, right? And so it's really putting yourself in their perspective and understanding their needs, understanding the way that what their love language is, to use Dr. Gary Chapman's message there, to understand what's the right way to love them. I mean, because the way that you receive love is not always the same. I love that perspective as it relates to branding. Thanks for sharing that. So why do you tell business and nonprofit leaders to help their organizations be known for something?
Well, it's interesting. In the communication industry right now, we're going through a major shift. What we're finding out, because we have all of this digital communication that's available to us, for years and years we had printed materials that we didn't realize how long somebody actually spent reading. So we would hand out things to people and say, wow, I gave them a pamphlet that has 12 pages in it, and I'm sure they read every part of it, but we had no idea whether they actually did or not. But now through digital communications, we know how long people are spending on things and how much time is involved in the consumption of that communication. And what we're finding is that people don't have that much time. People don't want to take the time anymore to actually, other than books, and there's some magazine articles that people will sit down and spend some extra time on. However, for the most part, communication-wise, people are trying to protect their time, and they're trying to make decisions as quickly as possible. So if something comes up in their life, they have a flat tire, I need to get my tire fixed. So they instantly think, who around me can fix my tire? And it's and they want to make that decision as fast as possible. People don't like doing all of that additional research. So that's why we as a church, for the most part, we have a very limited audience in our communities around us that even know what we do other than church stuff. And it's almost like it's a private club that has put walls around our churches. And most of the research is saying it's about a third of our communities have no concept of what's going on in the church, no connection with church. They just think that's for church people, and that's not going to be me. So we need to become known for something so that when the quick decision happens in someone's life, that our reputation and the big thing that we want to be known for pops up in their minds to say, okay, you know what? I probably don't need church, but I certainly need that. And that's the whole concept behind the branding behind be known for something.
And so speak to the business people here. In addition, what does this mean for their businesses? I mean, I in working with authors, certainly you were worked with your book, and you have a very clear message, and you know who it's for. But there are a lot of authors that come to me, as you can imagine, where I'll ask them, "Who is this book for?" And they'll say, "Well, my book is for everybody." And I think a lot of business leaders go about things that way, where they just, if you build it, they will come. But if you don't clarify who is supposed to come, then it just kind of falls on deaf ears.
Oh, for sure. And that's probably one of the biggest criticisms of any client who has ever come to us, even those people who really truly believe that they've limited who they're targeting. Most people aren't limiting enough. And it all comes down to the fact that if you don't know who you're talking to, you can't talk effectively to them. If you don't know who you're talking to, you can't even try to control the perception of what you appear in their minds. So, for church people, the churches all say, well, we need to reach everyone. We need to reach the whole community. For business people, oftentimes you get that, oh, wow, I've invented this widget, and it's like, oh my goodness, everyone can use it. And they get excited and they think about the prospects of, well, if I just sold to everyone in America, there's 300 million people. And it's like all of a sudden they're starting to run the numbers. And what we oftentimes want to do as branding people, my team sits down and we try to say, okay, so let's start small and reach a larger percentage of that small group, and then use those wins to move on. And it's kind of interesting, Darren, because it's the Acts 1:8 principle, be witnesses in Jerusalem, all of Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the world. It's like, okay, be witnesses first in Jerusalem of the people you know really well. Then that reputation will allow you to extend it into Judea and Samaria. And then that reputation will take it into the ends of the world. And we need to make sure we start with a small group of people who we have as a platform, who we can truly speak into their lives because we love them and we know what they need. And then once we get that win-win between, your products being sold to this group of people and they love it and you love that you're making money off of it, then it's a matter of taking that success into the greater audience and maybe extend your target audience, but oftentimes it's just extending geographically into the same audiences into different regions.
That's so good. I mean, somebody may think, well, Jesus told us to go and make disciples of all nations and not just some, or not just a handful of people. Well, but when you look at the actual ministry of Jesus, the individual, in those years that he spent on earth, he was going after a very tiny demographic and a subset of that demographic, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So it was a specific ethnic group, and then there were those who were on the fringes of that ethnic group. So that's why he has these. And so when the woman comes to him to get deliverance for her demon-possessed daughter, he says, I've come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He did give her that miracle, but he still made his point very clear that I am called to the Jews. And certainly the ultimate outcome was to reach the entire world through his disciples. But there's to your point there, we have to focus. We have to be. It's really a principle of stewardship, right? To be faithful with that audience, with that following, with that message that God has given to us, instead of trying to reach everybody.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, Christ did die for all. However, we as a local church, we can't reach all. So we've been placed into a community that God wants us to have a group of believers who influence that community. And yes, after you've influenced that community, you will have that reputation. You'll be known for something that will reach outside of that community. However, um, everyone is more effective with the smaller group before they ever reach a larger group. And that's the kind of the pinnacle of how marketing works. It's, one person tells another person, and then those two people tell four people, and then it keeps expanding in that manner, where a lot of people in businesses and in church, they think, no, I just need to communicate to everybody, and what ends up happening is they contribute to noise and no one hears anything.
So what you've named several things, with targeting and defining your message. What are some of those practical steps that maybe a leader is listening to this and they have, if they were to go talk to people in their community and ask, what is your perception? What is this company all about? You may get a whole bunch of different answers. What steps should that business leader take in order to help his or her company be known for something?
I think it's really important for everyone who's running a business to know that you have two audiences. And we talk about this with the church, that they have a congregation and then they have the community. And in the same sense, a business person has to understand that they have their current set of clientele, and then they have the potential clientele that's outside. And the messages have to be somewhat different, but they need to really focus on one thread, something that is a solution or a path to a goal. So I would strongly urge everybody to figure out, so based upon who I currently have as a clientele, what is it that we're offering them, and what is the core perceived need that they have that I'm a solution to, or what are their main goals that I'm a path to their goals, and then take a look at all of it, because there'll be lots. If you talk to them all, we suggest sitting down and having focus groups where you just start chatting with them. What are the things that you're waking up in the morning and it's really bothering you? What are the main concerns in your life? What are your main problems, pains? And then shift it and start saying about what are the big goals that you have in your life, and start talking on the positive side. Then start talking, so how are we helping you? How does our product help? And you'll know your product a whole lot better than they will. And it'll be neat to hear them, how they interpret what your product does to actually offer a solution. And if you can get that, you'll list several of them. Then start looking externally to say, so what is it in my greater community, in the people who don't know about us yet? What are the perceived needs in that greater community, so that you can start communicating on a solution level? Because people will listen to a solution, where people get lost when you just start talking about features in a product. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. Instead of talking about the core solution that your product has, you want to tell everybody everything, and we don't buy that way. I mean, how many digital things you have, even your phone probably, that has so many more features than you ever know, but you have that core solution of how you use it. So you need to talk and communicate and reduce your communications down into that one core. And again, it's what we call the thread. What is that one core message that is the solution that you want to offer, and have everything revolve around it, because that one thing you will be known for will rise above and be different and sound different and come up above the noise, as long as the thing that you're trying to be known for is something that's unique and simple.
Well said. Well, for our listeners, Mark is bringing, if you've ever said to yourself, you're a business person in your church and you're wondering why your church isn't adopting more of these principles that Mark is talking about that you've seen in companies like Apple and Coca-Cola, and they've just done so many of these things very well. If you're wondering, how do I get my church to bring in some of these principles so that we can get our message out, so that we can introduce people to Jesus in a way that's relevant to their lives. Mark is a person that you need to introduce to your pastor. And so, Mark, tell us about your book, Be Known for Something, and also how you're helping churches and businesses.
Yeah, for sure. This book is really taking my 30 plus years of communications and just really saying, so what is it? What is the practical step-by-step action that we need to take? It is written towards the pastor and it's written towards church communicator. However, for those people who are listening that don't fall into that, and that you're a concerned ministry leader or you're a concerned person in your congregation, that you've looked around and your church is becoming less relevant in your community. A lot of times it's because your church is in decline or stagnation. It just means that you have to start to figure out, okay, maybe we've been saying too much. Maybe we need to really concentrate on one thing, and that's what good branding is all about. And the whole concept of be known for something in this book, it kind of walks you through, why do we need to be known for something? How do we control that reputation? What should we be known for based upon the community that's around us? And then how do we lock that message down into a communication strategy? And the whole last component of the book is, so practically, how do we make sure that all of our messages aren't equal, because that just becomes noise? How do we make sure that some of our communications rise above the other noise? And then how do we actually create, a communications calendar and the strategy of making sure that you have a digital hub where your website, social media, and email all work together? So all of that's at the back of the book. And ultimately, you could probably sit down and team read this book, whether it's with a group of deacons or trustees or a ministry group. I would love for every pastor to walk through with his ministry staff. In fact, when I wrote the book, I really wanted to have at the end of every chapter some decisive questions that it's like, okay, you've just read this, you've probably nodded all the way through in agreement. Now make the decision for your church or your organization. Here are the answers to that. And I would challenge everybody who reads through it to answer those questions before you ever move on to the next chapter, because everything builds on each other. And we're finding that there's a lot of churches that are team reading it, and they're getting a lot out of it because it forces you to actually reconnect with your community, because a lot of the churches have actually lost that connection.
Wow. Well, beknownbook.com is the website, right, to get the book?
That's right. And
then beknownforsomething.com, is that the best place for people to go and check out what you're doing, and maybe find out how they can get you involved with their church, their business?
Absolutely. Be Known for Something walks through, beknownforsomething.com walks through our process, and it's directed entirely at pastors. However, we also work with plenty of other businesses that are owned by Christians or have known about us through the church path. And I'd love to sit and talk with anybody who would like to talk to me.
Beautiful. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today and your wisdom and expertise and passion for the church and passion for those of us in the marketplace that are really working to make an impact for the kingdom. May God continue to bless everything you're doing with Be Known for Something, your family, your business, and appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if so, we would greatly appreciate it if you would leave us a quick rating and review for the Christianity in Business podcast on iTunes. You can get more information about the HBU Center for Christianity in Business at christianityinbusiness.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep integrating biblical values into your business.